Hello, I'm Roger Bisby from the SkillBuilder channel. Now, I've been installing and writing about heating systems for a great many years, and over that time I've seen a lot of changes, and one of the changes is that manufacturers have been on a continuous mission to get the optimum maximum efficiency out of boilers. Now, as they reach that peak efficiency, the focus has changed, if you like, to getting more efficiency out of the system. Now, the Boiler Plus legislation, which covers the installation of combination boilers, requires installers to use one of 4 different methods, you can use more than one if you like, to increase the efficiency of the system. And one of those ways of doing it is to use what we call smart controls. The Nest Thermostat E is an ingenious piece of technology that provides greater control of the heating system by taking into account the variants such as the weather and the occupants' living patterns. For example, if the weather turns unexpectedly mild, the Nest Thermostat E will delay the start time of the heating while still making sure that it manages to reach the target temperature by the required time. It can also link to your phone via the Nest app or through your Google Assistant devices. For example, just by saying, "Hey Google, make it warmer." And it's very easy to fit. And the good news for your customer is that it's also very easy to operate. Once fitted, it complies with the requirements of Boiler Plus legislation. So, as an installer, you're automatically complying and your customer can look forward to lower fuel bills and lower emissions. Phil has recently completed all his gas safe training and registration, and he's just started out on his own. I can well remember how I felt when I did the same thing. It feels like a big step, especially when you have a wife and your kids to support, but I can honestly say that after the first 12 months or so of slightly erratic workload when I was building up my customer base, I never looked back. And one thing I did discover is that you never stop learning. Now, we're going to take out this glowworm boiler and we're going to replace it with a Baxi Platinum combination boiler, which is going to give the customer slightly higher output, a lot more efficiency than this because this isn't even a condensing boiler, and this is a 15 radiator system. I've got to get the water out of the system, drain the whole thing down, and you know if you're a plumber that can sometimes take a couple of hours anyway. I got the boiler off the wall, it made me puff a bit. I've got to say, that old cast iron heat exchanger weighs a lot. I mean, you get used to lightweight boilers now, and then it's a bit of a shock to the system when you have to get one of the old ones off. Anyway, gravity was on my side, it went down. So I've got this wall here which has got a couple of things. I mean, this one up here is going to be a bit of a challenge to fill, but I'm going to do that after we've fitted the flue. But down here you can see this hole here, goodness knows why that's there, but I can feel a draft coming in from outside, so I'm going to fill that anyway because it's nice to start with a blank canvas, if you like. And I could use anything for that, but what I hate is waiting for filler to go off. You're trying to get the job done and you're scuffing the filler. So what I've got here is this HB42 wood filler, which, you know, you think, okay, wood filler, filling masonry, but it will work perfectly well. It's a 2-pack filler, like fiberglass, if you like, and it goes off very, very quickly, nice and smooth, and it's white, so it's nice. So for a job like this, you just have to be adaptable and sort things out as you go. I'm going to come back, go and have a cup of tea, come back, that will have gone off by then. Now, this is the boiler that we're going to fit. It's the Baxi Platinum 40 Combi ERP. Now, this is top of the range, the biggest output they do. And the reason that I need this big output is because you may have noticed the boiler we took out was actually on a pressurized system, but it was using a cylinder. But the customer wants to get rid of the cylinder and they want to put a shower, freestanding shower unit, where the airing cupboard is, and With this boiler, we can get the same kind of hot water output that they got from the cylinder, but they won't have to use a pump. The mains pressure in this house is good. This will give them loads of output, and it'll solve 2 problems for them. So they're going to free up a bit of space, have a nice shower, which hopefully I'll get the job of fitting, and this will go in its place. And I've actually got one of these in my house. I know they're good. So you have to order the right flue for it. It's also got an adjustable turret. Now, in order to keep the system clean, we're going to fit this AD mag filter. We're also going to fit a scale inline red inline filter to stop the scale building up in the heat exchanger and also on the taps in the shower. And we're going to fit this Google Nest thermostat E to comply with that Boiler Plus legislation. Something I've noticed over the years is that apart from boilers becoming smaller and lighter, they're also becoming more reliable. I mean, I'm old enough to remember that when you had a high efficiency boiler, it normally meant that it wouldn't be as reliable. And I know a lot of installers in the early days tried to talk customers out of them. But now this Baxi, for example, has got a 10-year warranty, which was just unheard of. So they're smaller, they're lighter, they're more efficient, and they're also easier to fit.
You done that boiler yet?
Hello, mate.
How you doing, all right?
You caught me having a rare cup of tea.
10 minutes, more like an hour.
Yeah, your job, I mean, that's what happens, isn't it? All the time, you know, you go and help somebody out and then it's all morning. But
yeah.
Don't worry, I've done a bit of the donkey work in there. I've left you a bit of pipe work to do.
That's not a problem,
so
mate.
if you're happy, we get cracking, then we get the boiler on the
No worries.
All right, okay. It's not wise really at my age to do that sort of thing, but what can you do? If you're on your own,
that's it.
You're on your own, right, mate?
For jobs.
This is where all your gym work comes into its own.
You're on?
Oh, okay. I think we'll check that, shall we? So while Phil gets on with completing the rest of the pipework on this boiler, I'm going to fit that Nest thermostat E, but I want Phil to have a look at it just to see how easy it is really, because it's something that's going to be coming in more and more in the future. In fact, this boiler is supplied by Mr. Central Heating with that Nest thermostat E so that you can automatically comply with that Boiler Plus legislation as it is now. So Phil, have you heard of the Nest E thermostat?
I haven't, no.
Well, Nest thermostat E they call it. Well, it's I'm going to show you. It's very, very simple. But in actual fact, have you heard of the Boiler Plus initiative?
I haven't.
Legislation?
No.
Okay, so what that says is that when you fit a combination boiler, a new combination boiler, even to an existing system, you've got to upgrade the system in some way, and that just produces more efficiency, cheaper bills for the householder. So they're doing it for energy conservation, but there are different ways you can comply with it. You can put in a flue gas saver there, which actually takes some of the heat back out of the flue gas, some more heat. You can do it with other smart controls, weather compensation and so on. But the Nest thermostat E is a very, very simple way, because all you're really doing is, if they've got an existing thermostat, you're just swapping it. You just change it over. So, you know, a couple of wires really. So just have a quick look at that. I won't keep you long, but I just want to show you what it is basically. I mean, if I can get my head around this, you know, I'm an old fellow. I didn't grow up with computers and phones for most of my life, whereas you did. So you should have no trouble really. The first thing is, this is the thermostat, right? This little baby here. This is the receiver, if you like. This is wireless, yeah. So this goes up on the wall in place of your existing thermostat. So the first thing to say is that it works with the weather. It's not like a weather compensator, you know, external probe, like you've probably seen those, yeah?
Yeah.
What this does is it picks up the weather from the internet. The next thing is it knows when the person is in the house. It actually illuminates. You can see the temperature just as you walk up to it.
Right.
So it knows that somebody's in the house. Now, if you've got pets in the house, you don't want the pets setting
Obviously, yeah.
You don't want them, to heat the house to a great extent for them. So what it does is it actually has a level sensor, but it doesn't catch the dogs going below.
Oh, yeah.
What it also has is a selectable setback temperature on it, so that it knows the house will never fall below a certain temperature. You select that and you put it in with your phone or your tablet. And the other thing is that these thermostats now, your old-fashioned thermostat, if you like, the conventional ones that I grew up with, it was a switch. It was on off, and the difference between it being on and off could be 7 degrees.
Yeah.
That's why people go, I feel a bit cold, and turn it up. But that's seesawing all the time. But these things are working a lot closer. The old-fashioned thermostat had that negative neutral in there because they've got a little heating element in there, a shunt, to basically heat the thing up as it's coming up to temperature, to switch it off so that they could avoid that cycling, that on-off cycling that you get with boilers sometimes.
I'm doing a lot of underfloor heating jobs at the moment. Can this work with that?
Well, it can, and funnily enough, it works really well with it. Warm water, we're not talking about electric.
No.
Because I look at electric underfloor heating as just being tile warm-up.
Yeah.
You don't heat the house with electric.
Yeah, exactly.
But for the warm water, it works absolutely perfectly. But having said that, this is a single zone. So what you want to do is you want to put this on the most representative area. It could be the living room or something. Now, one thing is that living in this country, we've got, the clocks go back in the autumn, forward in the spring.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I used to go around to a lot of old ladies' houses. They say, can you come and put my clock forward for me? I'll go and set it forward an hour for them, have a cup of tea and a bit of jam sponge, and off I go. Well, now this thing does it, automatically. I know that's coming in more and more, like your phone and everything else, but it will actually tell. So from switching it on, you switch it on, as soon as you've got it moving, you don't have to worry about it at all. It knows what time it is. It knows more about your house than you do. I'll just say one more thing, is that if the sun comes through the window, you get that low winter sun that shines through the window, hits the thermostat, it doesn't actually switch the heating off. It doesn't think, I'm too hot.
Oh, right.
Because it knows the difference between that bit of radiant heat and the true heat of the house. I mean, that is as clever as it gets, really, isn't it? So if we're going to get all this up and running before the customer gets home, we're going to have to get cracking. I'll do this, you do the rest of the heating, yeah? The first job is to take off the existing room thermostat and replace it with this HeatLink E. Now in this case, this is a mains powered unit, so we turn off the electricity and we test it to make sure that it's off. Actually, in this case, we've been replacing the boiler, so the whole system is shut down and isolated. In the description area below, we've added links to download the Pro Installer Nest Thermostat E installation guide, which helps give tips on any troubleshooting issues. HeatLink E location is crucial. It's got to be at least 30 centimeters away from the boiler, and install it with at least 30 centimeters clear on each side. The HeatLink E and the Nest Thermostat E should be positioned on the same side of the boiler, so the boiler shouldn't be in between them to block communication. During pairing, the Nest Thermostat E and the HeatLink E can only communicate wirelessly, so you need to consider the distance between the two devices and any possible sources of interference. For example, a wireless keyboard, a wireless mouse or wireless speakers, a baby monitor, a game console controller or a smartwatch. There are a number of terminals in this HeatLink unit, and the no-volt contacts will switch a 240 volt current up to 3 amps, so you can connect the common and the switch live back to the boiler. The terminals are normally open, so they make on calling for heat. If you have a neutral in the old stat, you can terminate this with one of the terminal blocks in the box. The HeatLink E can also be connected to a boiler via open therm for an even more efficient experience. Now we can simply pair this receiver with the Nest Thermostat E, which can be plugged into a USB power supply. To complete this job, you're going to need the customer's phone or tablet, so you can pair the Nest Thermostat E with their account and their home Wi-Fi. It's important to remember that the customer's device must be Bluetooth enabled. So if it's an Apple device, you'll need to enable Bluetooth, but an Android device should detect it and ask whether you want to connect. You then need to register the account. As the installer, you can put in your Nest Pro ID so your details are saved to the customer's account and they can easily get hold of you for any questions. Now you need to give the device a location, and this allows it to keep an eye on the local weather. Okay, now it's running, and you can use the pre-built schedule to start getting the most from the thermostat E right away. Then it will adapt to your personal settings, or in this case your customer's personal settings. Basically, they just turn it up and down as they would any thermostat, and it will remember what they did and build a schedule based on their preferences. You can also use the app to set the start and stop times. This would be the earliest that you want the heating to come on regardless of the weather. And you can also pop in times and targets and then leave the thermostat to do all the thinking. If you see this green leaf light up, it means you're saving energy. So it's good for the environment and good for your pocket. This is a nice visual way of telling when the heating is running efficiently. And you'll also get a monthly email with your energy usage report. I love these jigs. There is a point, and it's when you put these fibre washers in, when you have to go around and connect all those up from the jig to the boiler. And it's easy enough when you start. I mean, it's easy in this situation, but when you've got a kitchen worktop and you're trying to lie almost on top of the kitchen worktop to see underneath. But it's easy when you start, and you know, you've got a bit of wiggle room. I always loosen the nut on the back there so that there's a bit of flex. You can move the thing around a bit like so, and then you can tighten it up afterwards. So this one, because it's connected to the mag clean and the rest of it, it's just a little bit difficult. So as you get to the last ones, you run out of wiggle room because everything else is on. So where do you go? So you can see here that getting this fibre washer in is just a bit difficult. So it's good if you've got somebody with you who can just lift the boiler slightly. You notice what I've done here is put this chisel in, and that chisel is just holding it out because the wall is slightly twisted, if you like. The wall's slightly warped, so the whole thing's being thrown off. So there it is, the fibre washer's in there, and I got it in there without damaging it, which is very important. So this is the bit I really like. This is a permanent filling link. It saves having to have that dangly hose. No need to force it. That's it. That's in, one there. So the really good thing is if you want to fill the boiler or repressure it, you just pull that lever down there, water goes in, as soon as it reaches 1 bar, off it goes. And there's a sticky label instructions that go on the boiler to tell the customer how to do it.
So that's it. That's the completed installation of a Baxi Platinum Combi HE. That's up and running nice and warm, and also the Google Nest thermostat E is nicely installed. But one thing I didn't expect, you know, is that because this house has already got Google devices in, it just linked up to them. So when, for example, I say, "Hey Google, what's the thermostat set to?"
Heating is set to 18 degrees.
Clever stuff. I'm Roger Bisby. Thanks very much for watching. Come back and see us soon. We've got more Baxi boiler installations coming up and a whole lot more.